I'd like to talk a little bit about the backstory of our own Floyd County. A backstory is really another type of history, usually with a twist. And I've been exploring this angle of our history since I moved here in 1980 and began to document it all. I had no choice. There were too many stories, some spanning generations, even centuries. When I was young, something happened that seems to have set me on this path. The officials in the New England town where I lived decided that they needed a new town hall. And so the fanciful brick Victorian structure with towers and stained glass, a broad stairway leading up to the meeting hall, was to be torn down. I tried to make a cardboard model to remember it. The old building had personality. The new one, a low white rectangle of a structure, had none of that. So it's inevitable that things will change. But along the way, the people that live in a place make their mark, and those marks leave patterns. And sometimes the marks are so subtle that we don't even realize the traces of the past and how they affect the character of the place where we live. So here we have two 100-year apart scene. Local materials often provide the best clues to local character. There's a word for that. Vernacular means of the place. V-notch barns, split oak chair seats, center hall farmhouses with ancient boxwood hedges, gable end vents, rock walls, and handmade brick. All speak a singular Blue Ridge vernacular language. One day, our own timber frame might be our time's vernacular. In other words, local vernacular changes over time in a kind of metamorphosis. Our town and county's metamorphosis began about 250 years ago when the area was just forest and river plain. Gradually, the land transformed with new settlers. Farms and lanes, mills and shops, church services on wooden benches under the protection of tree canopies. Let's imagine how we might find evidence of the earliest days of our county. We might find it in the showy spring double daffodils, which oral history has it were brought here in an apron pocket 200 years ago on board ship from England. We might find it in the half-dovetail joint of a log barn or the shingle shakes of a spring house. But since wooden details might not persist and last as long and show the marks of settlement, today we're going to examine and look for the clues in more permanent materials of brick and stone. Let's start with chimneys. Rock chimneys were an essential item for any Appalachian farmstead to have. Usually flat rock, daubed with mud or clay joints. There was no other way to heat but with firewood. Initially, rock chimneys were essential because there was no brick. Floyd County needed a brick maker before that could happen. The earliest clay brickwork that I found in Floyd was dated 1836. Clay bricks were made on site from clay dug in the ground, and the brickmaker would take a wad, roll it between his fingers, and if it made a good snake or coil, it would make a good brick. Dug in the fall, the rough clay would then be tempered by winter freeze and thaw cycles. Then, the clay would be put in the spring into a horse-drawn pug mill, where it would be turned, the clods would be mixed with water and tempered with sand. Then a skilled molder would pack the wet clay into wooden forms and turn them out on the ground to dry. When they were dry, they would be put in a large pyramid surrounded with logs and burned to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit over as long a period as a week. The hottest bricks were usually saved for the exterior of a building, Next time you're in town, go to Main Street to the 1850 brick Presbyterian church and look at the fancy Flemish bond brick pattern on the front facade. You'll see the overheated glazed brick ends making a pattern. If you go to the side where the sidewalk is, the new sidewalk to the right, it would be to the right on this picture, you'll be able to see very common 5-course American bond, which is 5 rows of runner brick and 1 row of headers. And it still has its very early color wash protection on it, which was iron oxide, lime, and water painted as a protector, and then the joints were painted white. But what happens if you don't have enough brick makers? And what happens if there was another culture before us and they left their own clues about a new building material? 3,000 or more years ago, the woodland culture came to our area and excavated soapstone to create soapstone vessels. Here are some discarded prehistoric soapstone vessels mixed with historic pieces from the same quarry. And here I've made a picture of the quarry so you can see what it looks like. Think about the caterpillar's metamorphosis when you look at this. Soapstone is a metamorphic rock composed of the mineral talc. It's officially named steatite, and it forms slowly over time through tectonic plate pressure or heat deep in the earth. It can be green or gray, spotted or clean, flaky or smooth, or as in Floyd, often a rusty straw color, yellow. Soapstone was perfect for Floyd's development. Isolated as we were, 1 or 2 wagon days from markets. And one didn't need expensive tools to work with it. It can be soft, almost buttery. You can carve it with a chisel. You can plane it with a plane. You can cut it with a saw. On a hardness scale of 1 to 10, diamonds are a 10. Soapstone is a 1 or a 2, and your fingernail is a 2.5. Today, one can find soapstone from one end of Floyd County to the other, as evidenced by these headstones from one end of Floyd County to the other. The earliest date I've found carved in soapstone was 1790. Floyd families fashioned all kinds of useful items: bricks, silos, spring bowls, flue eyes, chimneys, chicken feeders, gate holders, foot warmers, fireplace mantles, door lintels, keystones, and this most beautiful sundial. Later in the 1900s, when our county's population boomed, enterprising residents began a commercial operation to saw soapstone bricks. They're used in construction. You can still see 4 soapstone buildings and 2 silos built entirely of soapstone brick. I'm not sure that we could ever count all the chimneys that have any soapstone in them in Floyd County. There are too many. So I hope you can begin to see and watch for the patterns of our place. These are the marks that others have left for you, the evidence of a unique character, remarkable ingenuity, and dedicated effort. And you might just discover your own backstory in your own backyard. And finally, some of my own favorite soapstone carvings. These were made from this pile of blocks by Marie Gode almost 25 years ago, a soapstone cat, a log house, and a turtle. Thank you, everyone.